What is up, ladies and gents? It is your friendly neighborhood BJJ podcaster, Rafa Sparza, coming to you with another great installment of the Grappling Hour. I hope you're having a great day. I am mostly having a great day. It is a beautiful time here on the Best Coast. It is what? This is 10:34. It's a little bit earlier than we're normally doing shows, but we have a friend of a show who's kind of up to some stuff, and we wanted to give him a proper episode. We wanted to plug his stuff. He's a near and dear member of the Grappling Hour family. He is vaguely paying attention. Now he knows he's on camera, and we'll go back to me. All right, ladies and gents, before we get to Bryan, let's give you a couple quick reminders. First and foremost, if you like the show, we would love it if you would check us out at patreon.com/grappling hour. Go there for just $5 a month. You can see my interviews 30 days before anybody else. And for a few extra dollars, you can see extra bonus content that's not available anywhere else, including Roast Wrath, a segment where people roast my competition footage. You can also see the Grappling Hour Challenge, where people get a card with a submission on it, and they see if they can land that on me within 2 minutes, and much, much more. So go ahead and check that out. All available Grappling Hour platforms. Additionally, if you like that stuff, you can also go get yourself some Grappling Hour merch. There is a Grappling Hour hoodie, a Grappling Hour t-shirt. Go to rafasparza.com/merch for much, much more on that information. We'd also love it if you like, comment, and subscribe here at the show. It does make a difference. It really does help us out. And more importantly, it encourages other people to see this show. We don't just do it to keep it a secret. Jiu-jitsu is not a secret. So tell more people about this show and the guests that we bring on. And last but not least, if you want to continue the conversations we have here on the show, join us on the Grappling Hour Discord. All right, that is going to do it for my plugs. Let's get to our guest. Well, you may know him as an MC. You may know him as a ref. You may know him as a competitor. You may know him as an instructor. But we here at Grappling Hour know him as the curator of all things clips for our interviews. He's an integral part of the family, and he has some fun stuff coming up in the near future. So we thought we'd bring on, for the very first time as a Grappling Hour guest, one Bryan Peterson. Bryan, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Happy to be here. I don't know what to do with my hands.
Because I'm not hearing
you. Did I mute
right
myself?
Now. I went from hearing you to not hearing you, but I see you're actually making noise here. So go ahead and say a few words if you'd be so kind.
Can everybody hear me? Or is it just Raph that can't hear me?
Well, it's definitely coming out, so I'm hoping that I can make some adjustments here. But Bryan, it has been a pleasure to see you on the show and to have you work with us. But right now, I'm not seeing you move on my side, so I may have to make an adjustment on the fly. This is how you know doing it live. We sometimes have to do things that'll make it so that I can hear you guys for whatever reason, because sometimes things go slightly awry. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to plug this in and out. I'm going to sound like shit, and hopefully we will get you back here in just a second. Okay. That has changed it for me. I see a thumbs up here from Alan.
All right.
Alan says we can hear you, so that's good. Bryan, do you mind saying some words?
Yeah, I'm just, I'm glad to be here on brand, complicating Raph's day.
This is intensely funny
as I normally
I literally talked to you a second ago and I could hear everything you were saying. So I'm going to try one other thing here on the broadcast live to see if I can make things adjust on the fly. Okay, I have an idea. Let me see, preferences. Okay, Bryan, do you mind saying a few words?
Yeah, I'm hoping everybody can hear me at this point, and all of the things that I've said about Raph when he wasn't able to hear me before.
Okay, Bryan, I think we're up to speed. How are you doing today, sir?
All right, I'm doing great. Happy to be here. As my interview debut here is on brand, and me complicating your day unnecessarily. So we're just moving right along the way that we normally do.
I mean, I don't have to cover for any of this for you. You just know this is what it is. You know, this is the stuff that reaches the cutting room floor that most people don't get to see, that other people They're like, oh my god, those look edited so well. Sometimes you occasionally will see me, if like my camera cuts out and I forget to take it out of the episode, you'll be like, by the way, did you know that you ran out of part of the episode? And I was like, that is correct. I did do that, and I should take that out. Or on rare occasions where I go, I don't care, leave it in.
Sometimes you like to see how the sausage is made, and then sometimes you don't.
You do not. I promise you, this is not a show where you want to see how everything is made. You want the polished, full product. So when we do the remaster of this, I'm sure we'll release it. But Bryan, okay, let's get straight to the top of what it is you're here for. You messaged me yesterday, and you were like, by the way, boss, I got some stuff coming up. And I was like, great, when? And you said next week. Now, Bryan, I literally plugged to people, hey, bud, we're going to put this on Patreon for 30 days, and then it goes out to everybody else. So when you tell me this, I'm like, well, I guess we're going live. Thus, us up now. So, Bryan, what is coming up for you that you would like to talk about today, sir?
Well, I'm a man of the people, so I did want to bypass that Patreon paywall to just talk directly to everybody. But I'm out here trying to live my best life as Iowa Jiu-Jitsu media personality, I guess, and whatever accolades that brings me. But there are a couple of awesome events coming up that I'm going to be a part of. That's going to be the Orbit Submission Series, which is the event that's coming up next week. That has a huge card, a lot of people joining in on it that I'm going to be there emceeing. And then a few weeks after that, we got the friends over at the Nogi Midlands event of the year, the culmination of the summer and winter trials. And I will be there along with a few other familiar faces on the Subspectrum media side, providing commentary, doing some interviews, and overall just telling the story of the event. So really excited for both of those.
Well, congratulations. You are quite in demand here, sir. And I just always think to myself, when they put you on these things together and they get you there, do you have a favorite thing that you like to do? Because I've seen you do commentary, I've seen you do MC work, I've seen you act as a ref, I've seen you basically do every human job possible. But of those, do you have a favorite job that you like doing?
Commentary is pretty fun. Just kind of being able to, tell the story of the match in a way that makes it seem fresh or new and not like two people are just sitting in half guard for the whole time, which happens a lot. But actually, the last event that I did was the Choke Point Invitational through Subspectrum. And that was the first time that we did some live interviews of the winners of the match after the match in the format that we lovingly called the Sub Tub. So we would invite the competitors in. They just won their match and they're gassed, so they don't know what's going on, which gives us plenty of time to just start asking them probing questions, get their opinion on politics, and talk about generally how the match went. And honestly, I thought that was it went incredibly well. I thought we actually got some pretty decent insight from all the competitors and what they thought of the matches, how they thought the future matches were going to go. And I think, yeah, that's something that I'd really look forward to doing some more of.
The Sub Tub? Who named that?
That was absolutely something that I said offhand before we went on air to my co-host Spencer. I was like, hey, what are we calling this thing? I think we gotta call it the Sub Tub. We'll get people in the Sub Tub. And then after we went live and we got to the first interview, Spencer just unprompted went, get in the Sub Tub. And I'm like, all right, we're rolling with it.
It's just, listen, dude, I thought I heard it in one of the clips. And then I for sure made sure my ears were clear this morning. And I heard what I heard, and I heard Sub Tub. And I thought, a bad first draft. It's just Sub Tub to anybody coming into this very confused. Like immediate, what's going on here? And is this the same tub that Khabib and all of his teammates were in? Like, is it just that it's so hot there? Like, why that particular name?
I I was really looking for something that the competitors can come into, and trying to work in the name subspectrum in any kind of capacity, which brings in a really I would say a facet of jujitsu that I think across all naming conventions is that you really have to work hard to differentiate yourself from like the BDSM community. Because when you start putting things like choke and sub and things like that in the title, you never know who's going to show up to your events. So, I think the real culprit here was Bryan Conley, and you can find him online at Jiu-Jitsu Photos. He's going all over the place. He covers a lot of the Iowa events. He'll cover Orbit and Subspectrum, but he also does a lot of the photos for Fight to Win. And before we started, he came over and he said, I know you've done commentary for like the main Subspectrum events, and they've been a little bit more like, formal. We've got the suits. You're trying to like really call this, and boost the show in a way that you normally would. But we're trying this choke point thing for the first time. Let's have fun with it. And so I think that was really the key that I went, all right, we're calling this a sub tub. People are going to have to get, they're coming in dirty and getting out clean. That's the way we're rolling with it.
So I want to give you some experience. You've been in the comment section before on our shows, but I'm going to give you some experience on what it's like to get the kind of questions that we get here, which is, wait, who's in the tub? And I want you to realize that it is misspelled here. So you're getting the true grappling hour bullpen experience of live comments. So this is what happens on the show, and you should know this. Sometimes somebody comes into the conversation late. They don't know what anything means. They say, stop the show and explain it to me like I'm 5. So I'm going to give it back to you, sir. What is, or wait, who's in a tube?
Yeah, who is in a tube? I feel like I'm in a tube right now, if I'm being honest. Things are closing in around me, and I don't know what's going on.
Well, they're good. I'm glad you got to experience at least one, if not more, as we continue go through this interview. Okay, so I'm glad you've done some commentary, but I've also seen you get out there as a competitor. So do we continue to see you as a competitor? Are you on a flex basis? Are you basically holding out to get a better negotiated price with Jordan? Like, what is the holdup? Because, I've had the opportunity to roll with you. Solid grappler, a very good black belt. I feel like you're a wonderful hidden gem, and you look like you want to get back out there sometime. So what are we looking for in your future as a competitor?
Yeah, I'm kind of picking my spots a little bit here and now, kind of just finding the things that I think are the most fun and interesting to do. I did a little bit competing kind of at like adult black belt, with we'll say mixed results. I've definitely lost to a who's who of professional grapplers at this point. But I definitely had to take some time off for an eye injury, which is super fun. And now we're kind of like getting to a spot where it's pretty back to normal. And Jordan came out with this the choke point rules, which are real wrestling based. It's really high scoring. He would call points really quick, call stalling really quick, and you can rack things up. And I just thought it sounded fun. I knew I was already going to be there, and I was just like, well, is there any Jordan himself was like, I'll do it, which I honestly worked out so much better because he and I, he was reffing the whole time, and I was just going back and forth from announcing the commentary to interviews that we're going through the whole tournament. And then we were like, all right, we're going to do a quick break. And we kind of looked at each other and we're like, all right, so we'll have a match in like 10. Yeah, all right. Well, like, I guess I'll go try to warm up, I guess. So thankfully we were both a little exasperated going into it. So I thought that it evened things up a little bit, because if it was someone else that was getting ready the whole time, I don't know how that would have gone. But and he was nice enough to allow me to wear what's becoming my signature jiu-jitsu goggles in that match. I think it's a new look. I think it's a new trend we're trying to start. I know Brandon Reed is already out there making a name for it, but I think few more wrestling matches, a few more of these choke point invitationals, and we'll get the branding out there. You'll see me start my own line of jujitsu goggles.
Let me ask, and I don't know if it's going to harbor bad memories, but why did you have to start wearing goggles? Because to me, when I first saw you wearing the goggles, my initial thought was, oh, he's like a Fantastic Four villain now. Like, what's happening here? And instead, I go, oh no, that's actually, don't joke about that. That really sucks. I think something happened to him. So, what exactly happened that required you to take the time off and the injury that took place there?
Yeah, it was a super like mundane thing. I just got poked in the eye pretty hard, and I had a big cornea scratch that went across my whole eye, which had happened to me before. This is not my first rodeo getting poked in the eye. The difference was with this one, I don't know if I maybe came back to training a little bit too soon or something, but it got to the point where uh, it tended to rip open again on its own. So I would like go to sleep and wake up, and as I woke up, my eyelid would scratch my cornea again. Which I don't know if you or anyone else out there has scratched their cornea, but it really doesn't feel very good. Uh, Kind of hurts a lot, and kind of impairs your ability to see things. So that was bad, and that would happen kind of on and off for about a year and a half until I got a surgery to correct it. And basically, since it first happened, I was wearing these rugby goggles just to say, hey, let's if I can get poked in the eye one less time, that would be nice. um, and it took a couple weeks of getting used to it, but at this point, I almost don't even notice that they're there. So I figure I'll keep them for a little bit. Again, let's cut down on number of times that it could happen. And then when if they fall off or if I'm doing a competition at this point, everything's kind of healed up. I think we can risk it in a couple of cases, but for general training use, I'm like, you know what, let's keep them shielded up.
The good news here is I've met your wife, and she's lovely, but the nice part of a wife that trains with you, a partner that trains with you, is you don't have to get too deep into what happened, because if they train, they tend to know injuries are more likely to happen. Something like that. That doesn't happen all the time to everybody. Can still happen to somebody, and that somebody happened to be you. So what was her reaction when you came home and you go, hey, no big deal, cornea got scratched, I'm sure it's fine. There's no way my eyelid can continue Groundhog Daying my eye and scratching it more at all, so we're good. What did she say when you came to tell her what happened?
Well, first things first, and I don't know if everyone else can hear this live, but at least to me, your audio is sounding a little bit like an evil, like sit and spell, you know. So it's
Got it.
coming through for
Okay.
sure. Like I've pissed off a toy with an ancient curse on it, and it's coming back to get me. And now is asking about my injured eye. So I just wanted to point that out there. Um, but no, like you said, having someone that is familiar with everything, it is easy to be like, oh, this got messed up, and then she's very willing to come in and be like, oh, right, okay, let's take care of this, because it's definitely gone both ways. With other injuries that she might have had as well, where it's like, okay, nope, we know what this is. Let's do what we can to take care of this. So definitely is a major help in that regard.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. So let's get into this. When you work these events, you have the governor of Iowa. What are your thoughts of this? If he's the governor, what does that make you for Subspectrum, sir?
Oh, am I like the intern? Am I like the press secretary maybe? Um, which definitely speaks to a lot of things. I don't know when this election was held. I don't know that I was able to, but it, it it definitely was just declared at some point.
Okay, interesting. How does my voice sound now?
Pretty much the same. Horrifying in the worst way.
Let's try this then. All right.
Hey,
I
that
have
sounds pretty normal.
This sounds a little more normal.
Yeah.
I think it was the unfortunate aspect of I had to either give up. I had to give up one of two things here. I had to either talk to you and hear you, or I had to not sound like a robot. Like it can't be both. It literally here, and I went to go proof it while you were telling me that. So thank you for informing me. It just means I'm in a Zoom meeting talking to you now. So with all these things happening, you don't know if you're the intern. You don't know what you're there. Would you like to come up with a fancy name or position for yourself if he is the self-appointed governor of Iowa grappling?
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm just in so many odd jobs. I don't even know which one would really cover the whole thing. I feel like the press secretary would make the most sense. I'm definitely out there just like spinning propaganda, saying, "No, guys, for real, this event's gonna be great. Don't worry about it." Okay, you have an issue with the rules. Funny story. I don't make the rules, so
Oh,
I
wow.
can't help you with that.
Nope. Immediate fire on the press secretary. No like look, take notes from Trump's press secretary. When she's about to lie majorly, that crosses off. Epstein
Yep.
list? Yikes. Take that off.
What? That's
But
weird.
if the lies
That,
get a little
that
bit bigger, that crosses a little bit bigger for some strange reason.
I will say I did say this at the very first orbit that I was emceeing. I did a little intro, kind of talking about the event. Hey, this is how it's gonna go. We got like one-on-one fights. It's gonna be time limit, no points, sub only. But like at the end of the time, we're gonna have a panel of judges, and they're gonna decide. Mind you, they are deciding who wins. I will announce who wins. So if you don't like who wins, I'm not the one who decided who wins. I'm simply yelling it. So you go talk to them if you don't like the decision. And sure enough, there was a couple matches that people were not in total agreement on, and they came up to me and they were like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "I read the judge's card. I don't make the judge. I don't make the judgment. I read their card."
Good Lord.
Then they're like, "Well, where are they?" And I go, "I don't know. You'll have to find them."
So, what have you found that you've enjoyed the most as an announcer? Because when you told me you were going to be an announcer, I was most intrigued by that. Obviously, interviewing is near and dear to my heart. So, that part I knew I could ask you questions about and connect in a different way. But the announcing gig is perhaps even trickier than interviewing. What have you learned about it, and what have you learned about crowd control? Because you're usually the guy that has to kind of get them up, cool them down.
Yeah, for sure. I think that kind of is the main thing. And I'm doing the MC for Orbit. It's out at a sporting venue in the Cedar Rapids area. Generally, we have a pretty decent sized crowd, but we kind of control the space generally around the mat, right? So we're not like going all out where it's a super huge room. So I feel like that crowd control is a little bit easier, and I think when you start, you kind of have to like break into it. You have to say like, hey, I have the microphone. I'm commanding this right now. And that can be a little awkward to start at first. But kind of once you find your rhythm there, I think it just becomes more smooth and people are more likely to kind of respect that. Oh, you're talking, you have the microphone, we know what you're doing, you're kind of setting everything up. And then as it builds, going from like the prelims to the undercard to the main card, You start getting these bigger matches that more people are there to support. Their title matches, those are always good to announce. And I think you can kind of feel that energy grow because, yeah, by the end of it, when I'm announcing, title winners and you got to hit them with the and new or and still, I feel like people are all ready to hear it.
Have you had one moment as a commentator or as an MC that has stood out to you thus far in your experience?
We had a really fun moment at this last event, that Choke Point Invitational, where Jordan Mills, who actually is one of the I think he's officially the matchmaker for Orbit, but he was competing at Subspectrum, kind of known in the area for going for buggy chokes, and he got a buggy hit on him, and then he threw the buggy back on, and Spencer and I were like, all right, this is the perfect thing to call. We're just started freaking out over it. I personally always referred to that as a buggy to buggy. That's just in my own headcanon. That's what you call a buggy choke counter to a buggy choke. Spencer had about 6 more different names that he was pitching to call it in that moment. It definitely kind of had a pro wrestling feel to it, because we're just like, my God, it's the buggy to buggy. What's happening here? Definitely something that stood out, that you could be like, all right, we don't even have to do much to sell this. Everyone can recognize that what's going on is a little bit goofy.
You do give off a vague Tony Schiavone vibe when you are doing commentary, none more so than when you put on the Bash at the Beach esque attire. When you guys all decided to wear Hawaiian shirts, I'm all for being themed up. But when I saw that in particular, I said, you guys aren't at Sturgis, you weren't at the Mall of America. It's taking me a minute to get adjusted. So whose idea was to go that way? And why were you so mad at somebody for outdoing you when it came to the dress code that day, sir?
Yeah, that was for sure my idea. I know I put in the group chat with Paycheck and Jordan. I think that picture of Shivani and Mark Madden and Bobby Heenan from Bash at the Beach with the Hawaiian shirts, and I just said, "All right, summer trials. This is the fit. This is what we got to do." And it was an idea I had at one point right before the winter trials, and I just didn't have like the full thought through to like really articulate it, because I thought, oh, the winter trials, we should be getting like bomber hats and scarves and selling it that way. And it just came to me like probably on the drive over there. So I was just like, well, all right. But by the time the summer one came around, I was like, all right, let's see if we can make this happen. And I put that in the chat. I wasn't sure if not. So the next step forward then was to post myself in the outfit, and I sent that to them, just to kind of say, "Hey guys, we're for real. I got the Hawaiian shirt, I got the floral visor, I got the puka shell necklace. We're going all out." And then that was my mistake, because then they knew I played my hand too early. It was still a couple weeks out, just to kind of say like, yeah, come on guys, like I got it, you guys get it, I'm definitely wearing this, don't make me be the only one. And then to my surprise, I show up and Anthony Paycheck has his Hawaiian shirt underneath a full white suit, given mega Scarface vibes. And I just got outplayed. I got outplayed by a master.
My question to you now is, do I sound a little bit better here?
Yeah.
Okay. Fortunately, I'm able to make gadgets work, the true Iron Man of jiu-jitsu. I would say this. What did you learn from that? Would you have done anything differently in retrospect? Because you basically gave away the game plan to somebody who turned around and outdid you. Would you play that hand differently if you could go back?
Well, actually, then for the next event, Paycheck was calling the shots. He really wanted to go for a John Wick inspired outfit himself, And I was a little like, I don't know where that leaves me. Like, am I the dog in this situation? What am I dressing up as? But he pitched a classic John Claude Van Damme at the red carpet. I found some inspiration. I thought I did a decent homage to it. So we did that last year for, I believe it was the Nogi State Championship, is what it was called. And that's what we went with. So we got a little back and forth going. I think this year we've been kind of chill on the outfits. We've been kind of playing our hand a little bit softer. But with the Midlands coming up, I know it's I think myself, Paycheck, and Spencer, who was with me at Choke Point, are all going to be kind of coming in and out on comms, and we're going to see what we can put together.
Good to know. Well, I want to ask this because now we're starting to get to that part of the show, which is, sir, I always like to know a little bit about everybody's training and their upbringing. So for you, where does jiu-jitsu find its way into your life? Were you playing other sports before then? Or, I know wrestling was part of your upbringing. I just didn't know if jiu-jitsu happened first or if wrestling happened first.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of went through the traditional Midwest, like young boy sports series, which was karate for a little bit, and then football for a little bit, and then being someone who, by the time I was getting into high school, weighed about 120 pounds. My mom told me, I'm never letting you play football because you'll die. So I also got into wrestling at that point, just from watching pro wrestling. And then I was like, all right, well, I guess I can, try to fight guys my own size. And then so I did that, basically did that all through high school, and really fell in love with wrestling there. When that ended, it was actually really depressing. I kind of was almost felt like, like you don't know what your identity really is because you put so much into that sport. And then, especially as a high school sport, it just kind of is like, well, you're a senior. That was your last one. All right, well, have fun. And so when I went to college, I kind of thought, now that I'm in college, I'm going to like try some different things. I did wrestling for so long. Like that was kind of all I did. I want to like branch out, and I joined a few clubs. I helped start a paintball club at the University of Iowa. And then like 2 years into college, I had a friend that I worked with, and he was doing jujitsu, and he was like, oh, you should come. I think you'll like it. And I came in and like, rolled the first day and was like, oh my God, I've missed this so much. And then I just didn't stop doing it.
A few things that you touched upon. We should probably start with the first that is going to trigger me. You went to actual wrestling based off your love of pro wrestling. Now, sir, at this point, were you informed on how pro wrestling works and that there are people who are predetermined to win? Had they told you about Santa Claus? Like, at this point, when you go to the real wrestling room, it's not that you're the only person that's done this story, but most wrestlers hate professional wrestling. And now it's cool to be okay with it, but especially then because kayfabe on both sides. Like, what happened when you started getting into that room and you go, oh, this isn't like chair shot and interference and walkout songs? Like, okay.
Yeah, I everyone, as I wanted to sign up for, actual wrestling, everyone would be like, it's not like pro wrestling, right? And I was like, yeah, I know. But like in the back of my head, I was like, you probably just got to go through this for a while first. And then like, a few years in, they take out the chairs. So I guess I was just following the path of like, I'm gonna become a shooter first. I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be like working out in the dungeon, because that's what they always said that like Bret Hart was doing. And I was like, that's like, okay, yeah. You got to go and get in like a sweaty mat room, and then you work your way up. And then at some point, you probably like, you take like an aptitude test, and it's like, well, do you want to do that or do you want to do pro wrestling? It's like, oh, well, time for me to go this way. But yeah, it turns out that never happened.
So we've talked a little bit about pro wrestling because you've come on the show and done PowerPoints every Royal Rumble, which are incredibly helpful and funny. but I argue more informative than funny because we have to make sure the masses know what's happened if they haven't been keeping up a storyline. But who are your favorite wrestlers, pro wrestlers, the real ones, when you were growing up?
Well, like I said, when I was a teenager going in high school, was like, 4'9" and 100 and something pounds. So I loved Rey Mysterio. Uh, Absolutely. I watched all of his stuff. A lot of those early, well, I wouldn't say early, but like the first brand split SmackDown guys were like everyone that I watched. So Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Rob Van Dam, Kurt Angle, all dudes that then like you just watch later and you're like, oh wow, they actually were really good. But but it's not always that because the time I watched it, they were like, yeah, we got a lot of like really good guys who could put it on. But we're gonna like fight for the custody of a child, and I was like, this is great. This is everything that I want.
They weren't just fighting over any child. They were basically going over the greatest intercontinental champion of all time. So wasn't just nobody there. It was somebody of vast importance that they were having a custody battle for, which, by the way, only recently my wife has seen clips of, and she goes, "That's terrible." And I was like, "But look how he turned out. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah, who knew?
Great
Who knew?
parenting."
Who says that Triple H can't do long term storytelling? It literally started in 2005.
And sometimes you just know when a kid's got it. Why let him go to like elementary school? It's like, nah, kid, you've got it. Just stay this way forever, and it's going to be endearing in 20 years when you like dino nuggets over real food. It's your gimmick, kid. You've already figured it out. Like, genius.
You know what did it for me
Mm.
was because I think when Dom kind of debuted as an actual wrestler, everyone's like, all right, we kind of just doing he's Rey Mysterio's kid. Like, that's kind of cool, I guess. But like, what does he do? But when he did the interview after he had his first WrestleMania match against his dad, and he talks about like, yeah, I like powdered out of the ring, and I saw my sister was ringside with a cup of water, and I was like, oh, that's stupid, and I just went over and threw it in her face. I was like, oh, okay, he gets it. Like, never mind, he's gonna be fine. Like that makes the most sense in the world.
I felt bad because, and I don't know if the right way to say this, but the way that they played him as a babyface, he looked like he would have belonged on the divergent side of us here in jiu-jitsu. So when I was looking at him, I was like, there's something, I can't figure it out. Is he okay? Are we good? What's going on here? And then you just realize, no, it was such an about face that he had to do that he was rendering in real time how to be a babyface when his true calling is to be a heel. And man, not only is he a great heel, but the way he's doing it in interviews, the way he's continuing to sell the gimmick in every way, shape, and form. I thought there was nothing better than the clip I saw, because I won't watch the real thing, of him on Logan Paul's podcast and him being like, "Oh, I thought you couldn't go back to Japan." And just subtly doing that and him like, "Yeah, I can go back. I can, what? This doesn't bother me. You don't bother me." And him going like, "No, it's just because you know the thing, right?" And I go, "Oh my God, this dude's doing 4D chess." Like, he understands he's on Logan Paul's podcast and knows I can fuck with him so hard and he can do nothing back to me. And chef's kiss. So I've been
For
very
sure.
happy
He's an
with his
instigator for sure. I love it.
So there is all of that. Okay, let's go back to this. So now you were in wrestling. Did you have a favorite memory from your experience wrestling? Because again, small kid, you put up photos every once in a while, and I see that kid, and I see the beginnings of what becomes your game. But for you, do you have any sort of memories that stood out at that time?
Yeah, probably just all the weight cutting. That was
Hmm.
super fun. No, I there's a couple of pretty cool moments. I had a really uh, dramatic matches in my time there, like junior senior year, where I came out and like you know got like an upset win, set the tone for like an important dual meet, and then like those are pretty cool feelings, especially when at the time, well, it's probably still the case now, but wrestling's a winter sport, and I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago where you have like a decent wrestling turnout. It's still the Midwest, but like everybody is really like, cool, we're playing basketball now. And so there really wasn't, and I kind of figured that out pretty early on, that much interest in wrestling and watching wrestling and supporting the wrestling team. But while I was there, it kind of started building a little bit more. And I remember, yeah, there was kind of like a big dual meet that we had at our local high school, and I was like the first match, and I think I just went out and like dominated the guy and got the pin, and like people cheered, and I was a little like, yo, there are people here. That's crazy. Like, that was a good feeling. So like I think those are moments that like are great and you remember them, but then they also kind of get you addicted to winning, which I think every wrestler will tell you is like you get that pump once and you're like, oh, put that in my veins. I don't ever want to lose again.
So I'm glad you mentioned all of this. One thing that kind of stuck out to me is for most people who do wrestling to jiu-jitsu, if you add some karate, how did you find your first day in class? Like who brought you there? How did you go to jiu-jitsu? How does that kind of find its way? Because when you mentioned there was a little bit of a depression that comes, and that's normal for people, especially when you're young, you're trying to figure out your identity, and especially when you're at that age where you go, can I just keep wrestling forever? And the answer, not really. Like there's maybe some other avenues for it, but you don't get to do it in the way that you love it, especially if you have those highs where you know it's a drug. So how do you find your first day in jiu-jitsu? How do you get there?
Yeah, so I was working at the University of Iowa, kind of before I was getting my master's, and someone I worked with who kind of like helped me get that job, he had been doing jujitsu for a little while. I think he was a blue belt, and he just was. He tells it as he wanted to get me to join so that like he had someone to beat up and then make them get better so that he would get better. And I think he probably could have stopped that sentence halfway through, and that would have been true as well. But he finally convinced me, like, yeah, it didn't take much. I was kind of like, oh yeah, something like wrestling. I like wrestling. Let's go try it out. And so they had a club at the University of Iowa, which is where I started. And I think the first time I went, it was kind of a low point, kind of toward the end of the semester. So people were kind of like not super there. It was kind of mostly like the main crew. And it was, I think, more of just an open mat. And so we just kind of like got to mess around. And yeah, it was one of those where I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't really want to be like, I've never choked anybody before. Let me just start squeezing stuff. So I was kind of playing it a little timid, but definitely getting in there and being able to like roll around. It just was like, oh yeah, that's what I do. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know why I tried doing other things. This is the thing. And then when the new semester started, I like officially joined. And those are crazy because as a university club, it would be like every semester you just get you send out like a mass email like, hey, you guys should try jujitsu, and then you just get like 100 people show up, and you get to use the university's like mat room, which is like pretty big, and it's just like, all right, well, everyone now is going to learn an armbar from close guard to kind of figure out what jujitsu is. You just have 100 people in the room all doing terrible armbars, and that energy kind of keeps up for like a week or two, and then it's kind of starts dwindling, and then by the end of the semester you got like like a normal sized class of maybe like 10, 20 people. But yeah, those peaks they were crazy.
I'm sure. And I mean, there is something addictive to this. We'll get to the question that you do know is likely coming up here. But for you, when this does happen and you do get kind of addicted to it, for you, when do you find yourself going from that Iowa room to like a more traditional class? Because to me, that's an interesting thing where I've seen people start their journey in college and then they find their school, their gym. So how do you make that transition from going from that college wrestling room to one where you're actually going to a class?
Well, so the cool thing about the Iowa room is that it was run by who is my coach now, John Gutta. Um, he actually started there also, and when he was in school, and then once he graduated, was still in the area, and whoever was like the highest belt at the time, I guess, moved, and it's kind of like, oh, you're the highest belt. I guess you're in charge now. I think that's how it went. But he eventually took it over, and so we would have pretty regular classes. It would really only be like those first couple weeks in the semester where it's like, okay, we literally have too many people here to function, so this is kind of an intro. But throughout the year, we would have normal, like, I guess your traditional class where you come in, do some warm-ups, do some drilling, do some rolling, and then some open mats on the weekend. And they were pretty well attended, and it ended up kind of being this weird, like, jujitsu commune almost, because it was open to students and like the public. If you wanted to just pay the student dues to join, you could, which made it way easier for the club to kind of sustain itself when there wasn't school. And jujitsu takes a while to actually get good, so you can actually like get a purple belt, get a brown belt, and stick around, rather than probably get a blue belt in your 4 years at college and then move. And so honestly, I was training there, I think, until COVID. And then when when COVID hit, the university was like, "What do you mean people are rolling around in our mat room?" Like, no, 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 we don't do that. You've never seen that. And so then it was kind of like, oh, okay. And however long it took to reform, I don't even know if it's kind of back up and running, but I think at that point it was kind of like, okay, so we can't rely on the school anymore. People are gonna have to kind of like run their own gyms, and luckily, John was already running his own gym at the same time, up in Cedar Rapids, so that's where I ended up sticking around.
Well, I'm glad that worked out. And you know what? God bless the American education system, because jiu-jitsu is expensive AF, and that being a perk for a school, huge. I can't tell
So
you how I would have taken advantage of that.
this is the thing. This is why they had so many members, because again, everyone was paying student dues for the
Mm-hmm.
club, and club dues are due every semester, which is 3 times a year. So you get spring semester, summer, and then fall semester. 3 times a year you have to pay dues. Dues were $80. So we had a legit
Oh my god.
pretty good like regional competition crew that would show up to, like, IBJJF Chicago Open, any of your local, what are they, USA Grappling, Five Grappling,
Mm.
stuff like that. And we'd clean house pretty well. And people would always be like, what is it, like some university club? And we're like, oh, dude, it like everyone goes here. Like it's crazy. And so many like gyms in the area, now can kind of trace back to, like, I can think of 3, 4, 5 gym owners around that I trained with, in that room, who then went on to go like open a gym in a town not too far away. So it really had like a pretty big impact on the jujitsu community in the area. So it's kind of a weird nexus point that happened, especially when you make jujitsu really cheap and accessible.
You hear that, you dumb fucks that want to take away money from education? You don't get a better deal than that. And guess what? Bryan turned out pretty good for jiu-jitsu. You would think, like, oh man, he got the bargain basement jiu-jitsu. He's not good. No, he's pretty good. And more importantly, for me, I remember taking boxing in like a college course, and it was mostly to stay in shape. There's no way my boxing that I was learning there, which was more cardio based, is anywhere near the boxing that I have at the gym I currently teach at, or many of the surrounding gyms that are near us here in SoCal. But it got me started, and it was way more affordable, so that you get a sense of, yeah, I think I want to come back to this. So there are lots of benefits there. You know the question, you know what's happening now. when did you actually fall in love with jiu-jitsu so that you would actually follow it as a passion more than just as something you wanted to do as a hobby, sir?
I think it was probably toward the end of my blue belt. Basically, when I actually graduated college, I got a job in Dubuque, Iowa, and moved up there. And um, kind of just moving to a new city and getting a new job, it was like, wow, I don't really know anyone here, but who I do know is the guy who runs Dubuque Jiu Jitsu because he trained with us at the university club. And so it was very easy to message him, his name is Eldon, uh, and just be like, hey, so I moved here. Can I train with you guys? And he was like, yeah, for sure. And so really my life became, well, I go to work, I come home and eat, and then I go train. And I just did that every day. And just once you kind of like ingrain that into your routine and into your life, it's just hard to, kind of go without it. And you just, at that point, all of my friends were through jujitsu and the couple people that I was kind of cool with at work. So it just became really easy to be like, yep, this is where I am. I love doing this thing. I love hanging out with all these people, and you kind of get that sense of community there, and it kind of it reflects back on you.
That I can actually affirm and tell you. Brian, listen, we're coming up on our time here, so there's obviously more to talk about. And now that I have this primer, I'm definitely going to have follow up questions for the next time we do this. But most of the time, you're the one cutting up all of this. So, what do you think you have to cut up here? Have you already figured out what parts of the interview that you are going to cut? Did you write down timelines or time code that you could come back to and cut for this episode? Because you're the guy that's cutting this.
Yeah, absolutely not. I blacked out. I don't even know what I've been talking about this whole time. So yeah, no, that's unfortunate. I haven't even given any like crazy hot takes about jujitsu in this that I can make viral clips out of. So I'll have to get some ready for next time. I don't know. Ask me something. I don't like being thanked. I don't know.
All right. Listen, this is
Don't
how
call
you
me
know
professor.
you get into the lull of what I do. So that you basically are like, yeah, I'm just talking. What, is the interview over? But I know how this works. Well, the magic doesn't disappear, sir. So why don't we do this? Why don't we have you plug your stuff? Tell the people where they can find you. You got stuff coming up within this next week. So camera's all on you. Feel free to thank whoever you want and give plugs to wherever you train and all that stuff.
All right, here we go. We'll go down the list. So first off, look out for Orbit Submission Series. It's event number 9. It's going to be in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It's next Saturday. I believe it's going to be streaming live on Facebook. Going to be a lot of matches. We have, I think they're crowning a new women's champion. They kind of just reformatted the women's divisions. So that's going to be exciting. There's a big crew from the gym that I train at, Tipping Point. We got Austin, Ben, Danny, Taylor, Peyton, Evan, and Bryce. All of them have matches. So we are well represented in that area. And I'm going to be there emceeing and announcing everyone winning. Hopefully, all those guys I just listed will come home with the W and I can say their name and I don't have to kind of have that awkward interaction where it's like, oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, we train together. I wanted to say your name, but, And anyway, after that, August 9th, Subspectrum Nogi Midlands. That's going to be really exciting. The qualifiers from the summer and winter trials, they're all going to be facing off in basically 4-man brackets at all the different divisions. Coming together to see who's the best of the best. They've just announced a couple of the divisions on Instagram. I know the under 189 is there, and I just saw they announced. I think it was the heavyweight one today. So those are coming out. I'll be there doing commentary, might be doing interviews, definitely just there hyping up the event. So that's going to be really cool. That's in Des Moines, and you will likely see that on YouTube. And then as for me, I'm just out here doing my thing, posting, dumb techniques on Instagram at Buji Katami and posting grappling hour clips on grappling hour. So make sure to like all of mine so that Raf thinks I do a good job. and then you don't have to like his as much, so that mine look better.
Don't do that, you idiot. For a team here, you dummy. You know, okay.
But then once I take those clips over, then you can like them more.
No, just like both. There's no reason you can't like his and mine. But like his is most
likes
of
are a finite resource.
Oh, no, they're not. what kind of sci-fi dystopia novel are you reading where it's like likes were scarce, but the desert was hot? Like, no,
Right now it's Sirens of Titan by Kurt Vonnegut is the sci-fi dystopian that I'm reading.
No more sci-fi dystopia. We're in it. I don't need to read what could happen next, or worse, give them more ideas for what other bullshit to put us through. Did I detect this, though, in that word salad that you were saying just a few seconds ago? You just don't like being thanked?
Well, I think we've gone through this.
Okay, but this is the part of the interview when I thank you. So, like, now it has extra meaning
got some extra
to me.
weight to it.
Oh, this is so great. Well, I just want to say thank you to Bryan, who's an instrumental part of this program and works his ass off to bring you guys the top curated programming here in all of grappling and jiu-jitsu. And because of his dutiful efforts to make sure that you guys get the best clips, he makes sure that you guys, some of you he doesn't even know, look great. And I have to say thank you for that, Bryan.
I will say there are definitely people that I don't know or like who have been interviewed, and I'm like, all right, well, I'll do my best.
Don't have to say no or like. No is different. I didn't sell you enough to be like, hey, this guy, and I go, shut up. I don't want to talk about it. You don't have to like every person. Bryan, I want you to look at your clock right now. What time does it say?
It's about that time.
No. Say the time.
Closing time.
It is
1:30 p.m.
And what time did you say you were good till?
1:30 p.m.
The pro. Just saying. All right, Bryan, get out of here. I appreciate you, sir. Great work today. I cannot wait to see more information from that. We'll have you back on the show in the near future. But my appreciation to you. Thank you for being such a great part of the show, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. Talk to you later, buddy. All right. For the rest of you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Grappling Hour. I hope you enjoyed it. It's great to get to know a lot of our friends, but Bryan is a big part of this show. He's a big help, a big resource. You've seen him as a commentator, an analyst, a friend, a clip generator here. He is many things. And guess what? AI can't replace that. He's asked a couple times. For the most part, we like him, so like we're keeping him on. But like AI, if AI can be sassy and funny and fix audio problems, yikes, we'll see what happens there. But I did all that on the fly. Sorry, I sounded like a robot for a split second. But anyway, my friends, you know where to go. Patreon.com/grappling hour. Go see these interviews 30 days. Normally, when we don't have live stuff to do, normally 30 days before everybody else. And for a few extra dollars, you can see extra bonus content not available anywhere else. You can check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, @Grappling Hour, wherever you want to find us. We're also on Instagram, and you can also find us on the Bullpen Live on Instagram as well. So follow that. That is where our bullpen clips are coming up. We thank you guys for hanging out with us. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this interview, or like if you just like Bryan, is really what I'm saying. Just like that. I don't know if that's a detriment because he does roast a lot of his friends pretty harshly, so you may not like it because of that reason. In that case, like me, because it's mostly non-offensive humor, depending on who you are. Some of you have soft skin, just saying. Last but not least, rapesparza.com/merch. Get yourself a Grappling Hour hoodie or a t-shirt. And finally, my friends, check us out on the Grappling Hour Discord @Grappling Hour. That's going to do it for us here at the show. Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate you guys. We will be back very soon. We have the bullpen draft for the season 8 of the PGF that is happening this Friday. So more information on that, but that'll do it for us. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a great day for grappling.